Hi, I'm Sim from Heirloom Naturally. We grow old-fashioned vegetables and seeds in the field without chemicals in the very warm high country town of Mansfield, Victoria. And today we've decided to put our tomatoes in the ground. Now, of course, being Heirloom Naturally, we only grow heirloom tomatoes in organic seed raising mix using our own organic seed and putting them into the ground into our lovely no-till regenerative market garden. So I thought what I would do today is just to give you a few hints and tips about how we go about planting our tomatoes and giving you, I guess, the motivation to put your tomatoes in the ground. Generally what I would say is we don't tend to put ours in the ground until Mansfield Show Day, which is kind of the second weekend usually of November. But looking at the weather over the next few weeks, yes, we are going to be getting some more rain, but the nighttime temperatures don't appear to be dropping below 10 degrees, and the daytime temperatures are still quite warm in the low to mid 20s. So I'm taking a bit of a punt and I'm getting them in the ground. We're at the end of October here at the moment. So let's get to it. Okay, so here we are in the market garden. The bed that you can see here I've already prepared earlier. So effectively what we do is that we remove the previous crop and then we give it a broad fork, we put some amendments in the soil if it needs it, and then we pop a nice thick layer of compost on the top. And that allows all of the lovely earthworms and microbes in the soil to do their thing, to do the work for us, really, of taking that goodness down into the soil as they, I guess, eat it, if you could talk about it that way. But they take it in, digest it, and therefore the soil is alive with all of its nutrients, with its microbes, with its worms, and in turn that soil feeds the root system of the plant. So we have very healthy plants here. Everything crossed that we get a good tomato season this season. Last year was pretty bad, really, with very cool nights and hot, humid days. So everything crossed that this season will be very different. Okay, so in terms of how we would go about planting this little darling, you can see there, as I go down into the pot, if I can get really close in there, I will, to show you. You're going to focus? There you go. Along the stem, you'll be able to see what look like little fine hairs, and they're actually the beginning of new roots. So you'll hear a lot of people talk about the depth to plant tomatoes at, that you shouldn't plant them deep, that you should plant them deep. The system that we use here is that we certainly plant them deep, because each of those, what look like little hairs, will form roots if this tomato plant is planted deep into that soil. And obviously the more extensive the root system of your tomato plants, the more uptake of nutrients they can get, the more uptake of water they can get, the more stable they'll be in the ground. So we do really want to plant our tomatoes as deeply as possible. So to make sure that there's no rot that occurs, what we need to do is to remove those lower leaves before we pop it into the ground. So I'm just going to do that now. I've only got two hands, so I'm going to have to pause it at this point and remove those leaves. All right, so I've changed the position of the phone camera so that I can do this while recording, which I'm doing now. So you can see there that I've removed not only the lower leaves, but also the second set of leaves as well. So when I potted these tomatoes on into this pot, I also planted it deep into this organic potting mix. So it's already deep with root systems, and now I'm going to put even more root systems by planting it deep into the ground. So let's get to it. Okay, so I thought that I'd just show you the root system on this tomato plant. And what's really interesting is that these were only potted on a week ago, and already you can see how the roots have taken up all of that lovely new organic potting soil that it's been given, and they're well and truly ready for planting. So there is the hole that I've just dug, and I'm not sure if you can see little worms in there, but there are little worms in there. Busy diving down into the shade, which they prefer. Okay, so we're going in quite deep. Then all we want to do is to mound that soil up around, push it in. You don't really need to be all that gentle when it comes to tomato plants. In fact, and I won't do it, but if you were to accidentally bend that stem, all that you would need to do is to pop a little bit of tape around that stem and it will heal itself very, very quickly. Okay, so that's in. All that we do is give it a good water. We're expecting rain tonight, so I might not even get around to doing that by the time that I have planted all of these tomato plants that need to be planted. The only other thing that I would say is that there's a lot of conjecture around should you remove the lateral growth points that come out through there that you can see that are starting. They have actually completed studies in the past on heirloom tomatoes, and I am talking about heirloom tomatoes here, not hybrids, and they've found that in fact if you remove those laterals, which looks really lovely and neat and clean, but if you remove those laterals you do actually decrease the yield that you'll get from your heirloom tomato plants. So we don't remove them. We simply train it onto the trellis that you can see behind, and as a result we get pretty good yield from our heirloom tomatoes. So hopefully that's been helpful. Everything crossed for a fantastic tomato season this season. These are our lovely Paul Robeson tomatoes, our slicing tomatoes, and if you've never tried an heirloom Paul Robeson tomato, my goodness, you need to track them down. So thanks for watching. We are likely to have tomato seedlings available for sale. I always put too many into the hothouse when I'm seeding, and so that's certainly the case this year. So keep an eye on our social media, and if you're on our email list, keep an eye out there, and we will keep you updated about when we have heirloom tomato seedlings available. Eat well, stay well.